Hello and welcome to the UPSC Prelims PYQ series, an entirely new series by Shikra Academy. In this series, we will be discussing all the previous year UPSC Prelims questions asked over the last 10 years. So in today's session, that is session first of this series, we will be discussing the 2024 UPSC Prelims question paper and question number 1 to question number 20 of 2024 Civil Services Prelims Examination. We will look at in detail about the solution. We will look further also. We also discuss whether or not some certain tricks can be applied. Tricks and methods can be applied, and also we can try to further enhance our scope. Okay, we can try to predict the future papers. Okay, so that in future, based on the recurring themes, we will identify the themes that are recurring year after year. We'll identify those themes and we'll try to prepare that theme. Okay, so starting with the first question, consider the following statements. The atmosphere is heated more by incoming solar radiation than by the terrestrial radiation. Statement 2, carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases in the atmosphere are good absorbers of long wave radiation. So these two statements are given. Now, which one of the following is correct in respect to the above statements? Okay, we have to see whether the statements are correct or whether one of the statement is explaining the other statement. Okay, whether the statement number 2 is explaining the statement number 1. Okay, so we can see that it has been a question asked from the subject of geography, and it is a static. It has been asked from the static part of the static portion of the syllabus. And apart from geography, we can also classify it under the subject of environment because it is talking about the greenhouse gas effect. Now, in this case, statement 1 is incorrect because the atmosphere is largely transparent to the incoming short wave solar radiation. So, these solar radiations that are coming, okay, the incoming solar radiations, they are short waves and which reach and heat the Earth's surface. The warm surface of the Earth will now emit further long wavelength terrestrial radiation. Okay, so that will emit the long wavelength, that is the infrared terrestrial radiation. Greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, particularly carbon dioxide, methane, and water vapor, they absorb these long wave radiations and thereby heating the atmosphere indirectly. Okay, so more than the direct solar insolation, okay, atmosphere is heated more by the terrestrial radiation emitted from the surface and not by the incoming solar radiation. So the terrestrial radiation, the uh, the terrestrial radiation will be more than the solar radiation with respect to the heating potential of the atmosphere. Okay, and the statement 2 is correct because the carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases, they are good absorbers of the long wave infrared radiation, that is the terrestrial radiation that is emitted by the Earth's surface. Okay, so we have to remember that sun, it releases the short waves. Okay, the sun rays, they have short waves, they reach the Earth's surface, they heat up the Earth's surface, then Earth emits the long wave emitted, and these long waves are then trapped by the greenhouse gases, and this is the greenhouse effect. So if we have this surface of the Earth, okay, and we have the solar radiation coming, so incoming will have shorter wavelengths, and the outgoing radiation, the radiation that is emitted by the Earth, that is the long wave uh, that have a longer wavelength, and that is trapped by the atmospheric CO2 gases, and it warms the then that warms the atmosphere. Okay, so now looking at the statements, we can say the atmosphere is heated more by the incoming solar radiation. This is incorrect because it is heated more by the terrestrial radiation that is emitted by the Earth's surface. The carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases in the atmosphere are good absorbers of the long wave radiation. This is correct. So the correct answer here becomes option D, that is statement 1 is incorrect, but statement 2 is correct. Moving on to the next question, question number 2. Consider the following statements. Thickness of the troposphere at the equator is much greater as compared to the poles. And statement 2, at the equator, heat is transported to great heights by the strong convectional currents. with respect to the following statements, we have to explain like whether these statements are correct or whether statement 2 is correctly explaining or is a proper explanation of the statement 1. Now, troposphere we know is the bottommost layer of the atmosphere that is in contact with the Earth's surface. So, the troposphere thickness varies with latitude. Okay, so at equator, the thickness of the troposphere is high. Okay, it has large thickness as compared to at the poles. So, it is more thicker over the equator, that is 16 kilometer to 18 kilometer, and it is relatively thin in the polar regions, that is about 8 kilometers at the poles. So statement 1 becomes correct. The intense solar heating at the equator produces vigorous convectional uplift that warm the air, and the warm air expands and rises to the greater heights, increasing the tropospheric thickness. Okay, so therefore statement 1 is correct. Now statement 2, the strong convectional currents transporting heat to the greater heights at the equator explains the statement 1. Okay, because why is it that the at the equator the thickness is more? Because of the heat that is carried on by these convectional currents. Okay, so we associate the stronger convectivity activity at the equator with the thicker tropospheric as well as the Hadley cell formation that takes place between the equator and the tropics. So we can say that in this particular question, the thickness of troposphere at equator is much greater. It is correct. It is approximately 2 times. And at the equator, heat is transported to great heights by the strong convectional current. So this statement is also correct. So our correct answer becomes option A. That is, both statement 1 and statement 2 are correct. Statement 2 explains the statement 1. Moving on to the next question, that is question number 3. Consider the following: pyroclastic debris, ash and dust, nitrogen compounds, and sulfur compounds. How many of the above are products of volcanic eruptions? Okay, we have to identify which of these are the products of the volcanic eruptions, and then we have to make a sum that how many of them are actually the products of a volcanic eruption. Okay, this question has also been asked from the subject of geography. So the first 3 questions has been asked from the subject of geography only. So we know that volcanoes eject the solid fragmented or materials such as the pyroclastic debris, ash, and dust. Okay, these are definite volcanic products. Okay, the pyroclastic debris, okay, the ash as well as the dust that comes out of the volcanic eruption. They also emit, the volcanic eruptions also emit many of the greenhouse gases, mainly water vapor, carbon dioxide, and sulfur dioxide, and traces of other gas, and sulfur compounds such as the sulfur dioxide, which are mainly the major volcanic gases. The nitrogen compounds are not typically associated with the volcanic activity. Okay, nitrogen compounds are not typically associated with the volcanic activity because nitrogen is present only in trace amounts. Okay, thus 3 of the listed items, that is 1, 2, and 4, are the volcanic products. So the major volcanic gases are water vapors, carbon dioxide, and sulfur dioxide, and not significant nitrogen compounds. So in this question, the correct answer will be how many of the above products. So we have the pyroclastic debris that comes out, ash and dust comes out, and the sulfur compounds, that is the sulfur dioxide mainly, that comes out. Nitrogen compounds are not typically associated with the volcanic eruptions. So our correct answer here will be option C. That is, only three of the products are the products of the volcanic eruptions. Moving on to the next question, that is question number 4. Which of the following is or are correct inference or inferences from the isothermal maps in the month of January? Okay. Also a question from the subject of geography. Okay. It is asking that the 2 statements are given. The isotherms, they deviate to the north over the ocean and to the south over the continent. Okay. Then the presence of cold ocean currents like the Gulf Stream, the North Atlantic Drift, make the North Atlantic Ocean colder and the isotherms bend towards the north. Okay, we have to identify the correct statement, whether 1 is correct, 2 is correct, or both of them correct, or neither of them are correct. Then we look at in January, especially in the northern hemisphere winter, the continents they cool more rapidly and are colder than the adjacent oceans. Okay, so in northern hemisphere in the winter months particularly, okay, the continents because the majority of the landmass of Earth's landmass is in the northern hemisphere, so that particular in the northern hemisphere it's slow or uh, it is it cools down way more rapidly as compared to the oceans out there. Okay, oceans, the water in the oceans that retains heat. Therefore, isotherms, that are the points having the same temperature. Okay, isotherms are the points in a plane having the same temperature. These are displaced towards the polewards, that is towards the North Pole, over the warmer oceans, and equatorwards, that is towards south, over the colder continents. So statement 1 becomes correct. Okay, it moves or it bends towards the equator in the colder continents and the oceans that are warmer. So in the warmer ocean, it bends towards the poles, that is north side. Okay. Statement 2 is incorrect because we know that Gulf Stream and North Atlantic Drift are warm currents, and the question is, and the statement in the question is telling that it is the cold current. Okay. Now the Gulf Stream, very important current that must be known of. Okay. It is a warm current and it warms the North Atlantic and cause the northward bending of the isotherms. They are not the cold currents. Okay. So we have to remember one thing, that in winters, the oceans are relatively warmer than the continents. Okay. Because the landmass on the continent, it cools down more rapidly as compared to the oceans. Okay. The water in the oceans, it can hold on to the warmth for longer period of time. The Gulf Stream is a warm current that moderates the northwestern Europe. Okay. So looking at the statement, looking at the question once again, so we can say that the isotherms deviate to the north over the ocean and to the south over the continent. This statement is correct. And the presence of cold ocean currents, so this Gulf Stream as well as North Atlantic Drift, this is incorrect because these are not cold ocean currents. These are warm ocean currents. So here the correct answer will be option A, that is 1 only. Moving on to the next question, that is question number 5. Which of the following countries are well known as the two largest cocoa producers in the world? Okay, two largest cocoa producers. Now, even if you do not know, like if you have not read the agriculture output of the different parts of the world, and but for a candidate or for an aspirant who is aware enough of the things that are occurring, so you must have seen on the chocolate wrappers. Okay, the fine or the luxurious chocolates out there, they market themselves by uh, calling them as the finest cocoa from the Ghana. Okay, they say that they procure the finest cocoa from the Ghana. So that's the hint over here. So it is Cote d'Ivoire and Ghana. Now let's see. Cote d'Ivoire or the Ivory Coast, that is commonly known as, and Ghana are the world's two largest cocoa producers, together producing a major share around 60%. So from these two countries, approximately 60% of the world's cocoa production is taking place. Okay. Cocoa thrives in the humid tropical climate that is found in the West Africa's cocoa belt. Other producers like Indonesia and Nigeria follow but are very far behind. Okay. So the West Africa, the Ivory Coast and Ghana, they dominates the global cocoa production, and this you have to memorize this for the agricultural questions. Now, a variation can be asked in the subsequent examinations in which they will not be asking about the particular country. Okay, they can ask about the specific regions. Okay, so which is the region having the highest production of cocoa in the world? So they might give you the option of West Africa, then you have to select that West Africa over there. Okay, so here we have in the western part of the African continent, adjoining the Atlantic Ocean, we have two countries, that is Cote d'Ivoire as well as Ghana, two adjacent countries that are the major producers of cocoa in the world. Okay, so here the correct answer will be Cote d'Ivoire and Ghana, that is option C. Moving on to the next question, that is with reference to the Himalayan rivers joining Ganga downstream of Prayagraj. from west to east, which of the following sequences is correct? Okay. So for this question, this is also a question from the subject of geography, that is the Indian geography. It is a question from the Indian physical geography. And the question is very interesting as it is asking about the Ganga river system. Okay, the tributaries of Ganga. So we know that at Prayagraj, the Ganga, the river Ganga and the river Yamuna, they meet. Okay, at Prayagraj, we have the confluence of the Ganga and the Yamuna. Now down the Prayagraj, okay, downstream of the Prayagraj, four important rivers, four major rivers or the tributaries of Ganga, they merge into the river Ganga. Okay, and then in this question, we have to identify the sequence from west to east, that is in this direction. Okay, if the flow is like this, which of these four rivers that are merging into the Ganga, what is their sequence? Okay, so for this, we have to be well versed with the map out there. Okay, so from west to east, downstream of the Prayagraj, the order is first the Gomti joins near the eastern Uttar Pradesh. So the first river that joins downstream of Prayagraj. So here we have Prayagraj, in which there is the confluence of this Ganga as well as the Yamuna that is coming. Okay, after that, the first river, the first confluence is of Gomti, which merges with the Ganga. Then after Gomti, there is the Ghagra river, which joins near the Chapra, and the Gandak river, which joins near the Patna and Sonpur. Then finally, it is the Kosi river, which further joins near the Kursela. So we have the Gomti river, we have the Ghagra river, the Gandak river, as well as ultimately we have the Kosi river. So these four are the major tributaries of the Ganga downstream of the Prayagraj. Okay. So we can use a mnemonic, that is Go Gha Ka Ko, that is Go for Gomati, Gha for Ghagra, G for Gandak, as well as Ko for Kosi. That is Gomti, Ghagra, Gandak, as well as Kosi. So the correct sequence here will be option B, that is Gomti, Ghagra, Gandak, and Kosi. Moving on to the next question, that is question number 7. Consider the following statements. Rainfall is one of the reasons for weathering of rocks. Statement 2. Rainwater contains carbon dioxide in solution. And statement 3. Rainwater contains atmospheric oxygen. Okay. Now we have to identify like which of the following statements following is correct with respect to the above statements over there. Okay. So first of all three statements are true in context. Okay. Rainfall contributes to the weathering. Okay. So rain, it contributes to the weathering of rocks. Okay. Both physical as well as chemical weathering. Rainwater dissolves the atmospheric CO2, forming a weak carbonic acid. Okay, so the raindrops, when they fall from the clouds, they mix with the carbon dioxide air, or they dissolve the carbon dioxide air in themselves and form the mild carbonic or the weak carbonic acid. And this causes the chemical weathering, that is the carbonation. Okay, then rainwater also contains a dissolved atmospheric oxygen, which promotes the oxidation of minerals, such as the iron-bearing minerals. They oxidize in the presence of oxygen. So when the raindrop falls, it passes through the atmosphere and it dissolves certain gases in it, both the carbon dioxide as well as the oxygen. Okay, and this contributes to the overall weathering, both the carbon dioxide as well as the both the process of carbonation as well as oxidation. So both 2 and 3 are correct and both explain how rainfall causes the weathering. That is the statement 1. So the chemical weathering agents in rain includes the dissolved carbon dioxide, that is carbonation, and oxygen, that is leading the or that is causing the oxidation. So here the correct answer here will be that rainfall is one of the reasons for weathering of rocks. This is correct. Rainwater contains carbon dioxide in solution. This is also correct. Rainwater contains atmospheric oxygen. This is also correct. And we know that both statement 2 and 3 are correct and both of them are explaining statement 1. So the correct answer will be option A. Moving on to the next question, that is question number 8. Consider the following countries: Finland, Germany, Norway, Russia. How many of the above countries have border with the North Sea? Okay, so this is again a question from geography. So till now, all the 8 questions have been asked from the subject of geography, and this is particularly a map-based question, just like the river question that we have seen, the tributaries of the Ganga River. This question is also a map-based question. Here the atlas comes handy. Okay. Now we see the North Sea. We see the littoral countries of the North Sea, that is Norway, Denmark, the Netherlands, Belgium, Germany, UK, as well as some area of France. Okay. So, and we know that North Sea is a sea in the Atlantic Ocean that is between the Scandinavian countries, the Scandinavian region, the peninsula, as well as the island of Britain, or that is the United Kingdom. Okay. So the North Sea borders Norway and North Germany, and also Denmark, Netherlands, Belgium, and UK. Finland and Russia, they do not have the coastline in the North Sea. So here, the Finland is here somewhere on the right side of the, what I would say, on the right side of Sweden, and the Russia is further on the right. So they do not have the coastline on the North Sea. Finland borders the Baltic Sea, and Russia also borders the Arctic as well as the Baltic, because the Russia has an enclave, that is the Kaliningrad, that is in the adjacent to the Poland, and that shares a coastline with the Baltic Sea. Okay, so here we have North Sea and here we have the Baltic Sea. Okay, and the Denmark is the country that separates the North Sea from the Baltic Sea. So now, looking at our question, so we know that Finland, it does not have a border with the North Sea. Germany has the border, Norway has, and Russia also do not have. So out of four, only two countries have border with the North Sea. Okay. Then moving on to the next question, that is, consider the following information. We are given a waterfall, region, as well as river. Okay, that is the Dhuadhar waterfall, Malwa region, Narmada river, Hundru, Chota Nagpur, Subarnalekha, Garsopa, Western Ghats, and the Netravati. In how many of the above rows is the given information correctly matched? So we have to match the information. We have to select a row in which the entire information, that is the waterfall name, the region in which it is there, and the associated river, all three are correct. Okay, we have to identify such rows. So now, the Dhuadhar waterfall, the river match is correct. It is on the Narmada river, but it is in the Malwa region, not the, it is in the Jabalpur, lies in the Madhya Plateau, not the Malwa Plateau. Okay. Then we have the Hundru waterfall that is correctly matched with the Subarnalekha river and the Chota Nagpur Plateau. Then we have the Jog Falls, that is also known as the Garsopa Falls, that is located in the Western Ghats. It is correct, but the river is Shravati and not the Netravati. Okay. So now the Dhuadhar is not in the Malwa region. Okay, but the river is correct. The Hundru, the region is correct, that is in the Chota Nagpur region, and the river is also correct, that is Subarnalekha. The Garsopa, the region is correct, that is it is in the Western Ghats, but the river is incorrect. So out of all three, in only one row, the entire information is correct. Okay. So moving on to the next question, that is question number 10. Again, we are given a table. We have to consider the following information. We are given a region, name of the mountain range, as well as the type of mountain. So we are given a region, that is Central Asia, the range mountain, Vosges, and whether the type of mountain. Then Europe, Alps, Block Mountain, North America, Appalachians, Fold Mountain, South America, Andes, Fold Mountain. And we have to see in how many of the above rows the given information is correctly matched. So for this, this is also a question on the geography. Okay, so all the 10 questions that are asked till now have been from the subject of geography. Okay, this is also a map-based question. You must be knowing about the different mountain ranges. You must learn about the different mountain ranges that are spread across the world. So now here we have the Vosges, which is located in Europe, France, and these are block mountains and not the fold mountains. Okay. Then we have Alps, which are, we know that Alps are located in Europe, Central Europe. They're located in Europe, but are not, but they are fold mountains, not the block mountains. Then we have the Appalachians, that is situated on the eastern side of the North American continent, spreading across the country of USA as well as the Canada. And it is a old fold mountain range in the North America. Then we have the Andes, that is a young fold mountain in South America. Okay, so out of the four, so we have the Andes, here we have Appalachians, and here we have Alps, and Vosges is just a small range of mountains that is found in the France, in the country of France. So looking at the table again, so we know that Vosges is not this mountain range. The region is incorrect. It is not in Central Asia, but in Central Europe. Okay. And it is, then we have the Alps, which is present in Europe, and but it is not a block mountain, it is a fold mountain. Then we have the Appalachians, that is present in North America. This is correct. The region is correct, and the type of mountain is also correct. These are fold mountains. Then we have the Andes range. Okay, it is located in South America and is a fold mountain. Okay, so out of four, we have only two such rows in which the entire information given is correctly matched. Okay, so the correct answer will be option B, that is only two. Moving on to the next question, that is consider the following airports: Donye, uh, Donye Polo Airport, the Kushinagar International Airport, and the Vijayawada International Airport. In the recent past, which of the above have been constructed as greenfield projects? Greenfield projects are those projects which are made entirely from scratch. Okay, entirely new projects, no redevelopment, no renovation kind of thing. Okay, so we have to identify in the recent past means in 5 to 10 years, which of the that or which of these airports have been constructed as completely greenfield projects. Okay, that are completely entirely from the scratch. Okay, so the Doni Polo Airport, that is in the Itanagar, is newly constructed on the unused land and opened in 2022. So that is it. That is why it is a greenfield project. The Kushinagar International Airport was developed on an existing airstrip. Okay, so an airstrip was there on which the airport was developed. So effectively a redevelopment or a upgrade. So that is why it is a brownfield redevelopment project, not a greenfield project. Then we have the Vijayawada Airport, International Airport. That is the existing domestic airport was upgraded to the international status, and this was not a greenfield build. So based on our assessment, we can say that it is only the Donye Polo Airport, okay, which has been the in the recent past have been constructed as a greenfield project. Okay, so and this question was also dropped by UPSC because the answer key did not match. Moving on to the next question, that is with reference to water vapor, which of the following statements is or are correct? It is a gas, the amount of which decreases with altitude, and its percentage is maximum at the poles. We have to consider the select the correct answer using the code below. Okay, we have to identify the correct statements over there. So we know that water vapor, okay, is a gaseous component of the atmosphere, and its concentration is highest near the surface because of the evaporation, and it drops rapidly with the altitude. Okay, so we know that it is a gas. It is when we it is the gaseous form of water, the water vapor. Okay, and its amount decreases with the altitude because at the lower altitude, altitude there is at the near the surface there is evaporation of water. So that is why the amount or the density of water is more near the surface. And as the elevation or as the altitude rises, then that density, that amount of water vapor comes down substantially. And statement 2 is incorrect because water vapor percentage is not maximum at the poles. It is highest in the warm tropical regions and lowest at the poles and the cold deserts. Okay. So here, looking at the statements, we can say that it is a gas, the amount of which decreases with altitude. This is correct. And its percentage is maximum at the poles. This is incorrect because the percentage is maximum at the equator, that is in the warmer tropical environment. So here the correct answer will be A, it is 1 only. Moving on to the next question, consider the following description. Annual and daily range of temperatures is low. Precipitation occurs throughout the year, and precipitation varies between 50 centimeter to 250 centimeter. Okay, so we are given a description. Based on that, we have to identify the type of climate. Which type of climate is this? Okay, you have to identify the type of climate. That is whether it is the equatorial climate, the China type climate, the humid subtropical climate, or the marine west coast climate. Now, based on the characteristics like the low annual as well as daily temperature range because of the ocean moderation, the precipitation throughout the year because in the coastal regions there is precipitation throughout the year, the annual rainfall typically between 50 centimeter to 250 centimeter. Okay, so we can say that the correct answer here will be the marine west coast climate. Okay, it is a coastal climate, especially on the western side. And what made us to eliminate the other options out there? Because the equatorial climate was ruled out because the equatorial regions receives greater than 250 centimeter of rainfall. Okay, the China type and the humid subtropical have more seasonal concentration of rainfall, not rainfall that is spread throughout the, not the annual rainfall. Okay, it is the equatorial region and the marine west coast climate that experiences the rainfall, the annual rainfall. Okay, but the equatorial region, the amount of rainfall exceeds, far more exceeds than the 250 centimeters. So we can also eliminate the equatorial climate also. So based on the three statements, okay, we can eliminate the equatorial climate because the precipitation is greater than 250 centimeter. The China type climate because the rainfall is seasonal, not annual. Similarly, in the humid subtropical climate, the rainfall is seasonal. And so eliminating all these three climate types, we get the final answer. That is the option D, marine west coast climate. Moving on to the next question, that is with reference to the Coriolis force, which of the following statements is or are correct? It increases with increase in wind velocity. It is maximum at the poles and is absent on the equator. Okay, we have to select the answer using the code below. So we have to identify the correct statement over here. So we know that the Coriolis force, which is apparent force due to Earth's rotation, is given by this. This is the formula of the Coriolis force. Now it is directly proportional. Based on this formula, we can say that it has been directly proportional with the velocity of the moving object. So it increases with the increasing wind velocity. Okay. So the Coriolis force is directly dependent on the velocity of the object. Okay. Be it the wind or something else. It depends on the sign of latitude. That is, it depends on also on the latitude and is zero at the equator and maximum at the poles. Okay, because the angle is zero at equator and maximum at the 90-degree at the poles. Therefore, both statements, increase with wind speed and maximum at poles, absent at equator, are correct. So we can say that it increases with increase in wind velocity. This statement is correct. It is maximum at the poles and absent at the equator. This statement is also correct. So the correct answer here will be option C, that is both 1 and 2. Moving on to the next question, that is question number 15. On June 21 every year, which of the following latitudes experience a sunlight of more than 12 hours? Okay. So June 21, that is the summer solstice in the northern hemisphere. Okay. Now we have to tell like at which of the given latitudes there is sunlight more than 12 hours. Okay. So here we know that on June 21, the northern hemisphere receives the summer solstice, and the northern hemisphere is tilted towards the sun. The sun's direct rays that fall on the Tropic of Cancer, that is 23.5 degree north. That is why the day length there will be more than 12 hours there. Okay, because sun is directly above. And the latitudes above the Arctic Circle receive continuous daylight, that is the midnight sun, much more than the 12 hours. Therefore, the equator has about 12 hours of the daylight year round, irrespective of the date. Okay, the equator, the latitude of the equator, that will receive exactly 12 hours of the daylight. And the Tropic of Capricorn, because it is in the southern hemisphere, it receives less than 12 hours of sunlight in on June 21. Okay, the situation will change. Okay, the situation will flip on 22nd December. Okay, because then in the northern hemisphere we have the winter solstice and in the summer hemisphere we have the summer solstice. Okay. Then the Tropic of Cancer will receive less than 12 hours of sunlight, and the Tropic of Capricorn will receive more than 12 hours of the sunlight. Okay, so here equator is not correct because equator receives exactly 12 hours of sunlight year round. Okay, irrespective of the date. Then it is Tropic of Cancer. This is correct. Tropic of Cancer, Capricorn. This is incorrect. And then is Arctic Circle. This is correct. So the correct answer here will be option D. That is 2 and 4. Moving on to the next question. That is a description is given based on which we have to identify a region. One of the following regions has the world's largest tropical peatland. So first indicator is this, that it is the largest tropical peatland. It is located at the tropical region, which holds about 3 years worth of global carbon emissions from fossil fuels and the possible destruction of which can exert detrimental effect on the global climate. Okay, and we have to identify that particular region out there. Okay, now the world's largest tropical peatland, that is the Cuvette Central peatlands. Okay, Cuvette Centrale peatland, which is located in the Congo basin. That is the basin of the Congo River in the Central Africa. It is the largest peatland, and we know that the peatlands are an excellent source of carbon sequestration. They hold on to a huge amount of carbon or the greenhouse gases. So this largest peatland, that is the Cuvette Centrale, it covers around 145,000 square kilometer, and it stores an estimated 30 billion tons of carbon, which is comparable to 3 years of the global fossil fuel emissions. And any loss of drainage of such peatland, any destruction of such peatlands will release huge amounts of carbon and will directly impact the global climate. It will send more and more greenhouse gases to the atmosphere and will impact the earth negatively. So the correct answer here will be Congo Basin. Okay, option B. Moving on to the next question, that is question 17. With reference to the perfluoroalkyl and the polyfluoroalkyl substances, that is PFAS, that are used in making many consumer products, we have to consider the following statements. PF, PFAs are found to be widespread in drinking water, food, and food packaging materials. PFAS are not easily degraded in the environment, and the persistent exposure to PFAS can lead to bioaccumulation in the animal bodies. We have to identify the correct statements over there. Okay, so we know that the PFAS or the per and the polyfluoroalkyl substances are widely used in the consumer products, especially the food packaging. Okay, and the non-stick coating and firefighting foams. So food packaging, the black colored containers that we receive from the food delivery apps or from the restaurants, they have the PFAS. Okay, that is the per and polyfluoroalkyl substances. They are made up of these substances. Now, they have been detected widely in drinking water, in food, as well as food contact materials. And they are highly persistent in the environment due to the strong carbon fluorine bond, and therefore the carbon fluoride bond. Therefore, these PFASs are known as the forever chemicals. Okay, that they do not get easily degraded in the environment. And if they are forever, they are not easily degradable in the environment. So they bioaccumulate in the animal and human tissues. And the chronic exposure is linked to health issues like the immune, hormonal, and the development or even the cancer risks out there. Okay. So all these three statements, that is, they are found to be widespread in the drinking water, food, and food packaging materials. That is correct. They are not easily degradable in the environment. That is also correct. That is, they are also known as the forever chemicals. And the persistent exposure can lead to bioaccumulation in the animal bodies. This statement is also correct. So here the correct answer will be option D, that is 1, 2, and 3. Moving on to the next question, that is question number 18. So now the question has been asked, these questions, the previous question and the 16th question as well. These are the questions now from the subject of environment. Consider the following: the carbid beetles, the centipedes, flies, termites, wasps. The parasitoid species are found in how many of the above kind of organisms? So we are given different type of organisms, and we have to identify in how many of those there is a presence of the parasitoid species. Now, what are these parasitoid species? So parasitoid are the organisms, commonly the insects, whose larvae develop on or in a host and eventually kills it. Okay, so such species in which the adults are not parasites, but the larval form, okay, or their development form, okay, the larval form or the development form, that is parasitic to a host, and eventually it kills that host. Okay, so these species are documented using hosts across a wide range of arthropods and insects. Okay, so first we have the carbide beetles. They are attacked by the parasitoid hymnobatophorans and the other parasitoids targeting the beetle larva. Then there are flies. Many flies are themselves parasitoids, and the flies are also host for these parasitoids. Then we have termites. The parasitoids associations are recorded. The wasps, many wasps are parasitoids, and centipedes, though less commonly discussed, the parasitoid association has been recorded for centipedes as the host. So therefore, we say that the all the species, the parasitoid species, hence parasitoid species are found among all of these five listed groups. Okay, so parasitoid species, that is such species whose larval form or whose development form is parasitical and can kill can eventually kill the host organism. Those are the parasitoid species, and they make home in all these five. They can make home, or they can infect, or they can invade all these five kind of organism. So here the correct answer will be option D, all five. Moving on to the next question, that is, consider the following plants: groundnut, horse gram, soybean. How many of the above belong to the pea family? Okay, so it is also a question on environment. You can also consider it a question of the agriculture as well. Okay, we have to identify out of these three how many belong to the pea family. So the pea family, that is the Fabaceaceae or the leguminous leguminosae family. All the three listed crops are legumes. Okay, that is the groundnut is a legume, the horse gram as well as soybean. So they commonly fix nitrogen. So the property of the leguminous plants is that they fix nitrogen because in their roots they have the rhizobium bacteria, and that bacteria lives in a symbiotic relationship with the plant. So that bacteria fixes the atmospheric nitrogen and provides the plant with the nitrogen, and also enriches the soil with the nitrogen. Okay, and these are important pulses, oilseed, and fodder crops. So here the correct answer will be C, that is all three. The groundnut, horse gram, and soybean all belong to the pea family, that is the legume family. Now moving on to the final question, that is, consider the following statements. The Indian flying fox is placed under the vermin category in the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. The Indian fly fox feeds on the blood of other animals. And we have to identify the correct statement and whether the statement 2 is explaining the statement 1 or not. So statement 1 is correct because the flying fox or the uh, pteropus is listed as vermin under Schedule 5 of the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. So we know that the Wildlife Protection Act categorizes animals, the endangered animals, and the different all the types of wildlife in the country in different schedules in different categories. So Schedule 1 and Schedule 2, they list the organisms, or they list the wildlife facing the maximum threat, okay, having the maximum threat. The organisms that are vermins, that is the whose high population can cause nuisance or destruction to both life as well as the property, those are considered the vermins. Okay, so this statement has been applied historically to certain fruit bats, and the flying fox is the fruit bat, that is commonly known as the fruit bat. The statement 2 is incorrect because the Indian flying foxes are frugivorous and nectarivorous, that is, they feed on fruits and flowers, and not they are not the sanguivorous, that is, they do not feed on the blood. Okay, so vampire, that is blood feeding bats, are restricted to the Americas, and the Indian flying foxes, they do not feed on blood, that is, they eat the nectar they eat the fruits. Okay. So here the statement 1 is correct, statement 2 is incorrect. So here the correct answer will become that statement 1 is correct, but statement 2 is incorrect. So correct answer will be option C. So that was a discussion about the 20 MCQs that were asked, 20 prelims previous year questions that has been asked by UPSC in the year 2024.